Hello, my name is Professor Sharon Peacock, and I'm the Director of the COVID-19 Genomics UK Consortium. I'm really delighted to welcome you to our latest Women in COG event. Our guest today is Dr Senjuti Saha, who is a molecular microbiologist based in Bangladesh. My pronunciation isn't as good as it should be today. Senjuti is currently the Director at the Child Health Research Foundation, where she works at the intersection of microbiology and public health. She's also recently been providing input into our COG Train online Future Learn courses on SARS-CoV-2 sequencing. Senjuti will be in conversation today with Dr. Katerina Galai, who is an Associate Director at COG-UK. So briefly before we start, a note on our meeting housekeeping. We'll be recording the session, which will go on our COG-UK website and YouTube channel. I would ask you to remain on mute with your camera off. The session will last until 1 p.m, with the opportunity for you to put your questions from 12:50 onwards. So please put your questions in the Q&A box. So I'm pleased to now turn this over to Katerina, who will lead the session. Thank you very much, Katerina.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Senjuti, hello and welcome. Absolutely delighted to have you with us. As Sharon mentioned, we've been fortunate enough to meet with you through COG Train, which is the training initiative of COG-UK, where you've been absolutely brilliant. And I think it's just been so fortunate that we can now have more of your time and hear some more of your story. And so thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and that beautiful introduction. Thanks.
So I guess we'll just jump straight in. We're so keen to sort of start talking to you and finding out some more. If we can maybe start with your early years. So you come from a family of microbiologists, both of your parents are in science. So what was it like for you growing up with both of your parents being scientists, and has this always been your dream career?
Very, very good question. And I'm not sure if the answer is very expected. So, you know, what was it like growing up? My father led a clinical microbiology team in a large hospital, the largest pediatric hospital actually. And then my mom, as a microbiologist, used to lead a vaccine production team in Bangladesh. So after school, it always meant I either went to my father's lab or my mother's lab. So, you know, I peered at bacteria under a microscope, or I would be in my mother's lab where she would do like different vaccine trials using guinea pigs. And you can imagine, only imagine our dinner table conversations when we came back home after day's work. So, you know, for a few years in my life, I felt like microbiologists are the only people who exist in this world, because people get sick, you figure out what caused the sickness and then you treat them, that's how they get better, or you make vaccines and ensure they don't get sick. So who else do you need in this world, right? That's really what I thought for many years. But then of course I realized that other people are also extremely important. But my love for microbiology never went away. I fell in love with microbiology and bacteria and viruses more and more. And as I decided what I want to become, what I want my career to be, I chose to be a microbiologist. However, when I was making that decision in grade 10, 11, 12 of what I want to pursue my undergrad degree in, my parents were very discouraging actually. My parents were very much adamant about me not studying basic sciences, not doing microbiology. That took me by surprise because, they definitely loved what they did. But I think their concern was they had to work very hard. And we were a middle income family. So life wasn't very easy and they never came home on time. So they kept on telling me that, it's very hard, and you constantly have to apply for grants, do this, do that. I feel like because I was a teenager at that time, maybe the parents saying no made me more want to become a microbiologist. Maybe it's a trick they played. I don't know. But all of that came together, and I pursued what I wanted to pursue all my life till then.
And you settled on Canada. You went on to do your studies abroad in Canada. How did that shape your professional ambition? What role did it play? And I guess also what made you then go back home to Bangladesh?
So first, let me tell you a little bit of how I ended up in Canada. I knew I wanted to go abroad to study, but I had never been to Europe or Americas. So one of my best friends in high school, half of her family lived in Canada, and she was applying. I was like, whoa, like that's so cool. And I want to follow my best friend. Like I'll never be able to live without her. So when she was applying for admission in schools in Canada, I applied with her without telling my parents, and even stole my dad's credit card, which turned out to be my dad's friend's credit card. They only got to know after letters started coming into the house, because at that time everything was through mail.
We'll edit this bit out for the fraud, for the financial fraud people, so to make sure that this bit is not covered online.
Yeah. But then I got in. My parents were not happy at the beginning, but I still went, and they caved. And actually my dad came all the way to Canada to drop me off and ensure I was at a safe place. He saw my dorm, he saw my room, etc. I did my undergrad in biochemistry and then my PhD in molecular genetics. I lived for 11 years in Canada, and it definitely shaped a lot of who I am today. Because I think that's the time I went very young, when I was 17, 18 years old. So that really is where I discovered myself as a woman. I learned that women could run. Like I grew up in a conservative family in Bangladesh. I never went out for a run. I never went to a gym, right? So when there was like, women can run. So I started running, signed up for races. I learned how to ride a bike. I learned how to become independent. So I discovered myself there. I adopted my first pet in Canada. I think that's a very big part of my life. And finally, Canada even gave me a husband. So it really shaped a lot of who I am today. And Canada is still home. I feel like it is a second home for me. Sometimes it's a first home. What made me come back to Bangladesh? I don't think there is like one specific event that made me realize I need to come back. The work that I was doing for my PhD was a lot of fun, and it was very important work. I was working with antimicrobial resistant bacteria and looking into drug discovery, novel therapeutics. While it was very exciting, I just didn't know how my work in Canada would reach people. I like people, I like talking, I like being part of the community, and I felt like I was missing that working in a lab in Canada. So, as I talk to my parents regularly and constantly hearing about their work every day and the impact they were having, I really felt like I was missing that. So that was a feeling I was constantly having. And, there is just so much to do in a country like Bangladesh in resource constrained settings, that you could do this much work, and the chance of having an impact of this much work is very high. And Bangladesh, there are many places where, I could go work, but Bangladesh had a community that raised me. I understood the context. I speak the language. So it just seemed the most obvious choice. So here I am in Bangladesh.
And I guess with your sort of newfound, or all of the learnings that you've learned in the kind of Canadian society, that's something that you definitely could also take back, and that's the kind of the edge, I guess, that you would have. And just following from this, what kind of challenges did you face when you were back? What was it like when you came back to Bangladesh?
I think my challenges, if I speak of myself as a woman scientist, challenges started even before I left Canada to come back to Bangladesh. I know when I was about to leave and talking to my colleagues, my mentors in Canada, and telling them, oh, I'm going to Bangladesh because I have this small grant, and I also want to experience, because I haven't been here, I haven't worked here in so long. The first question I usually got asked is, you're leaving your husband here? And that to me was a very almost hurtful, and also I was surprised because usually at that time, of my husband and my careers, because we were both in academia, was everyone was moving to different places, finding jobs. But usually when a man moves, the question is your wife coming with you? But when the wife moves, it's, oh, you're leaving your husband here. So that when it happened to me, I think I noticed it, and that did upset me. And then after I came to Bangladesh, I remember when I was leaving as a very young woman from Bangladesh, friends, extended family, everybody was very worried. Oh, a single girl going to Canada, not good. She's never coming back, right? That's it. And now when I was back, it was like, oh, why did she come back? Are there issues with her husband? She's leaving all her responsibility to come back. So
all of the professional body of work, all of the studies, all of that was put as second to kind of the personal choices, and the focus was on you being a woman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like the most common question that I got after I came back to Bangladesh was, what is your husband eating? So, my job is basically just to stay home. Doesn't matter what I studied, what I do, and cook. And there was a lot of noise because, there were a lot of discussions. I stopped going to parties and met as few people as possible because it was having an impact. You know how they say death by 1,000 cuts. And I think it's these little things that happen every day and really affects your confidence. Like, did I make the wrong decision? Is this really bad? Am I a very bad person? But what I think really helped me is my immediate family, my parents. So I will say I have an amazing support system, and everybody needs a support system. And definitely my partner himself. I remember this one night I was crying. I was so upset, and I called him. It was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it's like, I'm so sorry you're all by yourself. And by then he had moved from Canada to the UK for his postdoc. So sorry, you're by yourself and I am here. The question he asked me was, well, I am in the UK too. Neither of us are in Canada. Should I be feeling guilty that I came here and did not go to Bangladesh? I said, no, you're, pursuing your passion. What do you love doing? And he said, then why would you feel bad? And I think that was the tipping point. Like, yeah, that's true. Why should I be feeling bad? So after that, I invested on a very good pair of noise canceling earphones. And so I could cut out all the noise and just focus on the work.
And I think that's very symbolic as well, Senjuti, isn't it? The cutting through the noise. I think that's a theme that is weaved through your life and your work. So I think that may have been sort of a great symbol to help carry you through. I do want to talk a little bit about your activism. So in previous conversation, you said it yourself that you've never considered yourself an activist, and that's the word that other people have used when they're talking to you. And you work quite a lot with inclusion and promotion of young people, especially girls in science, and that's very important to you. You've just launched a program, Building Scientists for Bangladesh. Can you just tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. Like, you're absolutely right. I think it was one of the events I was going to in Seattle where they called me microbiologist and activist. And that's the first time it dawned on me. And I had to Google, what does activism mean, right? So I am now very happy that that word has been associated with my name. There was a point when, you know, my email signature said microbiology and activism. I was so proud of it. Still am. I think for me, activism is basically doing what I think is right and not caring about the noise again around me, and ensuring that if there is any opportunity I have to help the society, the community, the people around me, I must use that opportunity. I shouldn't go to bed if I do not use that opportunity optimally and efficiently. A lot of that is reflected, I think, not only my work, but also the organization that I work for. That's how Child Health Research Foundation works. So I think a Child Health Research Foundation has also played a big role in who I am today, in, you know, providing me with the confidence and the space to do the work that I want to do, or my team wants to do over here. As for Building Scientists for Bangladesh, it's a new program. We just launched it. What we have been doing as an organization for many, many years, it's a research-based organizations. So automatically it becomes a place for training. So we train a lot of young students who are mainly graduates already, so already done their undergrads. So they come here to do their master's thesis or just for their jobs. We have a lot of PhD students in sandwich programs between other countries and Bangladesh. But recently, there has been a lot of conversation in the country about this declining proportion of girls in STEM programs in university. So, you know, for example, in biochemistry programs, physics and math, we're seeing much, much fewer girls than we saw even 10, 15 years ago. That to us was actually a very surprising finding. And overall, we're seeing a decline in interest in science. And we had these conversations amongst ourselves that we are working with, you know, students or professionals who have already decided to be in science. But how do we encourage students to choose science as a career? And that's how Building Scientists for Bangladesh came about. How do you reach younger children, specifically girls? Because it's between, we think, grade 8 and 12, when, like I did, right, when girls are deciding whether what career they're going to pursue, and families have a lot of say in that. And through, you know, different conversations, whether it's through focus group or talking to the parents, we realize that girls usually don't want to become scientists because they don't see scientists around them. They don't know what scientists look like. And parents have this belief that scientists have no career because, again, no access to scientists, and this idea that scientists make no money, right? So we thought, from our place, what can we do? How can we leverage our expertise? So Building Scientists for Bangladesh basically has 3 streams. The first stream is take science to people. The second stream is bring people to science. And the third stream is build skills of young scientists. So in the first stream, what we do is we go to different parts of Bangladesh, specifically small villages, and partner with girls' schools and girls' colleges. And we go for 2 days. We plan a lot of experiments and work with the girls in the schools and do experiments that are applicable to their daily lives. In the second stream, we work with, again, different schools or different institutes, NGOs, who send their students to a research institute like ours, and they can shadow a scientist. They can meet a lot of scientists who are in the organization and realize that scientists look just like them. And they can be part of a lab, do experiments with us, learn how to, you know, criticize and ask questions and solve problems. And the third stream is for students who've already decided, who are in their 4th year of undergrad, they're already in biological sciences, they read about genomics in their textbook, but really never haven't seen a sequencer or even a PCR machine for that matter, because overall this is a resource constrained setting and not every student can be taught that. So it's a partnership between CHRF and different public and private universities, where 4th year students students are sent to our organization. They spend a week, 2 weeks with us, full-time 2 weeks, and they learn genomics. So that's the third stream of building sciences for Bangladesh, and we're very excited. That's still new.
That's absolutely amazing, Shujuti. It just sounds like a perfect kind of transformation from an idea and from where you want to take it into something very tangible. And I'm sure many of our listeners and people in our audience would love some practical tips on how do you transform an idea into action. And do you have any kind of tricks, whether it's about skills or networking, determination? I'm sure there's a perfect combination of all of those things. But what would be your practical advice of converting an idea into reality?
This question reminds me of something that one of my mentors once told me. When I was doing my PhD, an ex-chair of our department of molecular genetics, he was, an emeritus professor, but still coming into the lab and work. And he once told me, when you choose your friends, choose them carefully. Right? Like, choose friends with a car so that they can drive you to places because you don't have a car. Because I really wanted to go to a cottage in Canada, and obviously I didn't know anyone who had like a fancy cottage. He's like, just make a friend who has a cottage and go to his cottage or her cottage in the summers. So I think for me, it's about the colleagues and the friends I choose in Bangladesh to be part of the team. There are many things that I think about and I dream of. For example, the Building Scientists for Bangladesh program. I wake up with ideas and things that I want to do every day, but I'm an absolutely horrible manager when it comes to details. Like, I can think of a program, but if I have to sit down and, figure out all the little pieces that have to come together to make that program a reality, it will definitely crash and burn. I'm just not that person. What I'm extremely fortunate to have is this amazing team members where our thoughts are aligned, our values are aligned. So we can sit down for sometimes just 10 minutes in the morning. You can be like, guys, this is going to be so cool to do. Like when we first went out to a very remote village to do all of these experiments with young girls, it was very far. We needed to take like different modes of transportation to get there. But all of that happened, and I don't even know, like things just happened through magic because we worked as a team. I came up with an idea. There are other colleagues who added into that idea, and some people who just planned the activities and ensured that we go there safely, keep everyone safe, and come back after a very, very successful program, and ensures that this is also scalable, that we can go to more places. So I think the secret is having an amazing team who have good managerial capacity.
Teamwork and cultivating magic. I think this could be a good tagline for anything, for any career advice, really. And speaking of career advice and just career in general, obviously it's no surprise while we're all here, even COG-UK has come about as a response to the pandemic. And what we've done, we've run a COG-UK survey, and we found that just over 60% of the female consortium respondents said that the COVID-19 has positively impacted their career, and it provided more funding and opened the doors to new collaborations. And I guess I'm just wondering, given that your group was the first to sequence SARS-CoV-2 genomes in Bangladesh, what has it meant for your personal professional experience, and what has the pandemic meant for you? What has it done for your career?
So what has COVID-19 done to my career, or overall, I guess, to the progression of our team at the Child Health Research Foundation? So I think there are both positives and negatives. I will maybe talk about the negatives first and then go to the positives. The negatives have been, something that's new is always, of course, given more importance. So when COVID-19 hit, we were the first to sequence in May, yes, but we were also the first private lab to start testing. We feel very privileged that we were in that position to be able to do that. But at the same time, it meant that all our projects, all our other projects, surveillance projects, research projects on endemic diseases came to an abrupt end. It meant that funders were diverting all their resources on the outbreak. As much as that's definitely very, very important, the thing is endemic diseases do not go away. And when surveillance systems are disrupted, especially in resource constrained settings, it's really hard to restart. And it has been true because, more than 2 years into the pandemic, a lot of these resources we know are not going to come back. A lot of the surveillance systems for endemic diseases like dengue, like, vaccine preventable bacterial diseases that we have been conducting for decades now will not probably happen again, or we have to start from scratch, which is difficult. And that also meant, cut in funding. That also meant we had to say goodbye to many of our colleagues because we are a donor-driven organization. So I'll say that's been very difficult for us to, not for the organization to handle overall, but even emotionally. It's been very difficult. But there has been amazing positive sides too, especially after we sequenced SARS-CoV-2. We came under a lot of attention by the media, all, big newspapers, TV, name it, everybody in the country suddenly knew of us, knew my name, my father's name, the organization's name, and that was very surprising because we have been sequencing for a while and nobody was interested. But suddenly when it was SARS-CoV-2, because people already had their attention on SARS-CoV-2, our work was highlighted, and that had a lot of positive impact because, what we were talking about before, this lack of interest in science. I get a lot more applications for internships, for career opportunities at our organization than ever before. I get these beautiful notes from young girls saying, I also want to become a scientist and work for the country, work for the community. This entire idea that scientists also work for the community. Science, basic science can also work as social science, I think has dawned because of this. I get beautiful letters from mothers saying, I want my daughter to grow up to be a scientist. I see light. And I think that's positive. And we are leveraging this because, launching this program so quickly, Building Scientists for Bangladesh, has been possible because now a lot of the country knows us. So when we, want to partner with schools, universities, it happens very quickly. People trust us. People know that we deliver. I think there has been a lot of positives also. And if we can leverage this positive side enough, maybe we'll be able to overcome the things that haven't been very pleasant.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think it's always so important to, in simple terms, make the most out of a bad situation. And if you can showcase your values, if you can showcase your leadership, and it's just simply a different approach, which is much more community focused, then it can change the narrative, and it's just so important to do so. So I kind of stepped into the next question a little bit with regards to the leadership style that you have. You run a research group, you've received important awards, you've been named director, you started your own program, you've done so much amazing work, and you've also talked about having a great team around you. So what would you say your leadership style is, and how do you take people along with you on that journey? How do you make sure that the people around you really follow and embrace your values and principles? Because from everything that you've said today, it just shines through that how important these things are to you. So I just want to know the secret.
I am learning to be a leader. I come into work every day, and I come into work with colleagues and friends. As you know, every passing day, I feel like people come to me more for decisions. And when I have to make a lot of decisions for the organization, for my team, I realize, oh man, I guess this is what leadership is. Now I have to make decisions. And if something goes wrong, it's like, oh yeah, it was her decision to do this. So there's also that fear in me all the time. I don't know what my leadership skills are, or what kind of leader I exactly am. I'm trying to figure that out myself. I've been taking a lot of leadership courses. I've been reading books, Googling a lot about what are the values of a good leader. And I can't say that I found like one thing that I really, really liked. And I was like, oh yeah, it aligns completely with the kind of leader I want to be. I am learning as I go, and there isn't even this one leader that I think is the best and I want to follow into his or her footsteps. I meet a lot of leaders, and I try to take things from everyone that I like, that I think are very important. And I think in that case, my parents actually play very important roles. My father is the executive director of this organization, and the culture that he has cultivated in this organization is about playing as a team. When he has a conversation with a member of our organization, if you just listen to him and don't know who the other person is, it's impossible to tell whether he's talking to a janitor, he's talking to a microbiologist, a physician, or just a porter or a security guard. And I think that's something that I take very seriously, because this one time he told me that, you're very worried if, a microbiologist from your team or a genomicist leaves the job or goes away somewhere. What happens if the cleaner doesn't come in tomorrow? What happens? You think your microbiologist will be able to run the lab? And I think that really shows the power of working as a team and the importance of every member. So I take that very seriously. And also my mother has led a whole vaccine production lab, the biggest vaccine production lab in the country. So I saw how she managed her team. And for her, it was more personal. She's a very emotional person, and for her it was because she was in a powerful position, it was very important for her to help everyone individually. She didn't go to bed, or she wouldn't sleep a night where she felt like she could have done more for a person, leveraging her position. So I think I take things from both of them, plus many other leaders that I have the privilege of meeting regularly. I'm very people focused. I have realized that I can focus on a task and try my team to get the task done. If they're not happy, there is no way that task is going to done well. And even if it is done, it will not be sustainable. So, I'm very people focused. And something else that I have realized matters a lot around me is my relationship with everyone at the organization. And again, this is something that I'm working on constantly. I have learned that we should never burn bridges, because as we move forward in this entire world, we are realizing that, it's not like a person comes into a job and spends the entire life in the same organization. That doesn't happen anymore. People move from place to place, they change careers. And even as a microbiologist, my entire life, I have to intersect with many other people from different backgrounds and professions around me. And I don't know, a colleague today might be working for a different organization tomorrow, and we have to collaborate on a project, write a grant together. So it's very important that we don't burn bridges. It's not like I have a perfect track record, but I'm learning every day. And this is something that I'm really trying to cultivate within me, and I think within the organization, that when someone goes away from the organization, goes to another job, it's totally fine. We have to think of it as someone outside CHRF is now an ambassador of CHRF. I think those are some of the things that I'm learning. And the last thing that I do and do it with a lot of importance is I take notes of what I shouldn't be doing. When I meet leaders and I, watch them do certain things, and there's certain things that they're doing that I don't like or I think is not right, I will take notes, be like, Senjuti, do not do this. Or if there is something that someone tells me and I feel bad about, again, Senjuti, do not do this to other people. And that list is growing. So I am happy, I think, about that too. Yeah.
These are definitely some very, very practical bits of advice and truly inspirational examples from both of your parents. I think it's great that you managed to encapsulate it and sort of carry it with you and apply it in your personal life and share with us, because they are very applicable and transferable across. And just as we're sort of wrapping up our session, and we'll go to Q&A in just a moment, I just wanted to ask, what advice would you give to young girls and women who are looking to step into science and follow your footsteps?
My advice would be don't follow my footsteps, because I'm figuring things out. But no, like I constantly look for role models around me. And whenever I find someone I really like, I try to think of or find the qualities in them, what makes them amazing, specifically in women leaders. And I think there is pretty much 3 things that I have learned. And that is applicable to any woman in any career, not necessarily in science. And the first thing that I have realized, that when for someone to become very good at what they do or become a leader, it's not necessarily how intelligent or what the result of that person is or how smart that person is. It's about the passion and dedication and love for work. And that we also ensure when we are hiring new people at our organization. That's what we focus on. Are they really dedicated, passionate about the work that they will be doing with us? The second thing I think is very important is a pinch of disobedience, especially I think for women. We cannot have it all. We just cannot have it all. It's a myth. So it is okay to be able to please everyone. There is no way we can please everyone. And women, when they don't please everyone and don't smile all the time, means disobedience. And sometimes we have to be disobedient to ensure we can do what we want to do, what we really love. And I think that's a very common characteristic that I see in successful women leaders. And the final thing I think is, where do we focus our energy? Because we are fighting battles every day. We are fighting barriers every day. Death by 1,000 cuts, right? So we have to pick our battles. Someone can say something on the street. Someone can, I used to, as a teenager, I used to get into fights at the airport, at the bus, right? Because someone said something that I didn't like. I don't do that anymore because I cannot change that person's mind at that time. How do I, pick my larger battles and try to bring about more systematic changes and sometimes systemic changes? So it's very, very important that we focus our energy at the right place at the right time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Something that you said really reminded me of a line that I now borrowed from someone else. We can't have it all at all times. So it's about, there is a right time and for a certain number of things that you can have. And I think this disobedience really plays, adds just another bit of spice to that. So I'll definitely borrow that one. We have about 5 minutes for Q&A. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. We've got a few questions from the audience. I think I'll pick one to go next, because when I said what would you advise for girls to follow in your footsteps, and you said don't, which is very reminiscent of what your parents were saying to you. So you said that your parents were not keen for you to become a microbiologist and follow their footsteps. So how did you change their minds? That's the question from our audience.
How did I change my parents' minds? I am still trying to change their minds. You never please your parents, right? But at some point, I think parents realize that this person is just going to make her own decision. There is only so much we can go against her. If you are adamant, if you're dedicated, and if you really pursue your dreams, our parents love us and they will support us at the end of the day. So I think my parents just caved and were like, oh man, she's too stubborn. Might as well support her.
Back to disobedience then.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the next one is about the programs. Obviously, the work that you're doing with young children is so inspirational. Is there any information on how many girls decide to pursue science as a career as a result of the program?
Very good question. This is something we want to find out ourselves, but we just launched it. So the girls that we work with, we note down what they want to become when we are starting the program. And the idea is, this program will run for many, many years, and we will be able to follow up what they're doing in the next few years. I think that data is going to take quite a bit of time to come in. But what we are ensuring will try to ensure is, this girls that we are working with at a very young age, if they do pursue a career in science, let's say they decide to do an undergraduate degree in biochemistry, microbiology, at that time, if they want to come do their thesis with us or do an internship with us, they will definitely get priority, so that, at least to these young women, we can provide them as much support as possible from our place.
That's absolutely incredible. The next question is about your work-life balance. So how do you manage your work-life balance, and what do you do when you're not working?
I don't know how to balance work and life. I am really, really struggling. I come up with a new plan. Every month I Google a lot about how do people balance? How do, leaders who are busy still get their exercise done every day? I am trying very hard to balance. And, as I was also saying, my husband lives in a different country. I live very far from him. So even that requires a lot of balancing, ensuring, we get our conversations in every day. We do those phone calls. I am just not a super disciplined person, and I'm really working hard to, building a routine for every day, becoming disciplined. And every now and then I'll be like, yes, I'll start running again tomorrow, and I will break the ice and just run. And then I'll do it for a few days, and then I fall back into my old routine. And my husband makes so much fun of me because he's like, how much ice are you gonna break? Right? Like every few days you're breaking ice. You need to stop doing that. So it's a work in progress. I'm trying to figure out.
Amazing. Thank you so much for talking to us. I'm sure everybody will agree that this has been so valuable, and just generally these sessions that we have an opportunity to meet incredible women and inspiring leaders is just something that we'll really truly cherish and value. So thank you again so much for coming and sharing your story and your examples and your brilliant anecdotes with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. And it just remains for me to make some closing comments. So massive thanks to Senjuti and Katerina for a really fascinating discussion. Also thanks to the COG-UK team who actually make these meetings happen. Special thanks to Kim Smith. So Senjuti, you are such an inspiration, actually, and I really identify with many of the things you said. I really like the idea that scientists work for the community. I think that's spot on. And I particularly like your advice about noise cancelling headphones, both for practical purposes, but also the idea of philosophically cancelling out unhelpful comments so that we can grow in confidence and we can go through life being the best that we can. actually, I have to say there's so much I liked about what you said. I'm going to go back to listen again and again and get my family to listen as well. So thank you so much for a really fascinating discussion. So it just remains for me to say, please do join us again for our next Women in COG event, which the date of which will be announced soon on our website. We're aiming for June and July. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us and to our speakers. And I'll wish you a warm goodbye. Thank you.